So Scream 6 has recently came out and it's very interesting to say the least. But before we go into this review, huge spoiler warning, so don't get mad at me in the comments. Also, I'm just gonna put this out there now. I'm not like super into the Scream franchise, as I know a lot of Scream fans are. So I'm pretty much coming at this from a perspective of somebody who liked the recent films and just wanted to, share my review on it. Also, we got Jenna Ortega in there, so come on now. And lastly, there's going to be timestamps below for different sections of the movie that I'm going to be talking about, in case this video does get a little bit long. So the movie starts off in a very interesting way with, as you would expect from a Scream movie, a murder at the very beginning, but there's a little twist to it. So we have a college professor sitting at a bar waiting for her date to arrive. She ends up talking to him on the phone for a little bit, and then the ghost face comes on, and she ends up getting killed. And for those who haven't seen this movie yet, the best way to describe it is it's a lot like how Scream 5's opening scene started. So right after the first kill in the movie, the Ghostface actually reveals himself right off the bat. Never before have we seen somebody die to Ghostface and then instantly the Ghostface is revealed like that. It would have been very interesting if we knew who Ghostface was the entire time during the movie, but that's not really the case here. The killer starts walking back to his apartment and he ends up passing Tara while going there, and they have a little conversation, pretty much just letting us know that they actually know each other. Eventually he gets back to his place, he calls his roommate. So there we find out that they were actually planning on killing Tara and Sam, but that quickly gets shut down when a different Ghostface ends up killing them. So yeah, as a viewer, that was a lot to do off rip. It was kind of obvious to me that the Ghostface was going to die who revealed himself, because if they just kept it like that the whole movie, it kind of would, lose the spark, I guess, that the Scream franchise has, since it's pretty much murder mystery. But when you already know the mystery, it's not really, it could have been interesting, but I'm glad that they didn't go that way. But overall, the opening scene I do think was really cool, since we've pretty much gotten used to the killing or almost killing off the bat for the movie, but having this switch up a little bit from a completely different set of Ghostface dying to another Ghostface, I think that was really cool, to be honest. It also shows how popular Tara and Sam have actually gotten from these murders. And throughout the movie, they mention a lot about how a rumor went around that Sam actually masterminded all of the murders and she was Ghostface the entire time. And she ended up setting Richie from Scream 5, who was the actual killer, and ended up plotting everything on him. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the motive for the first two killers, because they wanted to get, revenge and make things right for Richie. But I'm not 100% sure if that's true or not. I'm gonna skip some scenes so this video isn't too long. So we end up meeting the rest of the group, aka the suspects for the movie, and this consists of Ethan, Chad's roommate, Erica, Mindy's girlfriend, Quinn, Tara and Sam's roommate, Kirby, also another character from the previous Scream movies, Danny, who's pretty much Sam's boyfriend, and Detective Bailey, who's Quinn's dad. Okay, so now that we got all the main characters out of the way, let's continue. So in one of the scenes, we get with Tara and Chad, and they have a moment together, and it's obviously that they both have feelings for each other, so they go in the kiss, but it gets interrupted by Quinn. So the reason I mainly mention this is because in Scream 5, we really never saw them interact at all. So maybe that's why, to me, it felt a little bit forced. And also, Chad had a whole ass girlfriend in the last movie who was killed, so I don't know about that one. I was very conflicted because it makes sense, because if Tara would have a relationship with somebody, it would be someone who she could trust, like Chad, and not some random guy. I think it's just kind of weird because we never really saw them interacting that much before. But at the same time, there's a whole 6 months between the movie's timelines, so But to give credit where credit's due, this relationship really makes one of the scenes later on in the movie a lot more impactful. So eventually the group learns about the murders that have recently happened, and as expected, Sam's pretty freaked out, and eventually she heads down to the police station for questioning with Tara. But on their way there, they get a call from Richie, her dead boyfriend from the last film, who was the killer, and she answers, and Ghostface picks up and eventually attacks them. We then get that scene in the convenience store. If you've seen the trailer, you know what I'm talking about. So I want to mention this because one, is when they first get attacked, but two, I feel like the scene could have been a bit longer. I don't know, I felt like I got everything that happened in that scene just from the trailer, but I don't know, maybe that's just me, since the movie was 2 hours long, but it really went by quickly because I was really enjoying it. So maybe it was just me, getting in all the information, so everything was just going super quickly. So we eventually go back to Sam's apartment, where pretty much everyone's trying to, you know, hunker down and stay safe. And for some context, Danny, the guy Sam likes, lives in the building next to them, so they can see each other through the windows. So Danny ends up seeing Ghostface in the apartment and tries to get a hold of them, and then this big chase scene ensues. It ends with Mindy's girlfriend dying, and so does Quinn. You'll see why I did air quotes in a sec. Now, I thought this scene was really fucking good, I'm gonna be honest. This was probably my favorite scene throughout the entire film. The way that everything was done, the desperation for what Danny was trying to get a hold of them, then the actual attacking happening, and everyone's, you know, fleeing, everyone gets split up. And then there's, I think this was also in the trailer, that scene where they're climbing across the apartments from each other on a ladder. That was a really nice scene. I thought it was really cool. And then, you know, like I said, Mindy's girlfriend ends up dying, unfortunately, and Quinn. But now I'm gonna bring out the major plot hole in this movie. So Quinn doesn't actually die, and it's revealed at the end that she's one of the killers, even though, you know, we all thought she was dead. So the way they end up explaining this in the end was that it was prosthetics that she had for all the stab wounds and whatnot. How does a police department not realize that a dead body is not a dead body, and they end up getting away with it? It just makes no sense. And I'll get to the end a little bit later, and I'll dive deeper into everything, but I just want to say that the killer reveals was a really big letdown to me. Like, with Quinn being the killer, how is the audience supposed to pick, you know, her as a possible suspect if everybody thinks she's dead? Like, how would we just expect that the police department was like, oh, dead body, even though it's not a dead body? Like, what? Like, I get it if we saw her stabbed and we never actually saw her body or what happened at the end, but like, literally the whole NYPD was there. They said she was dead. So how? Like, how? It was really just disappointing finding out that she was the killer after all of that, since there's supposed to be some type of aha or oh, that makes sense moment, you know, when the killers are revealed. But you just don't get any of that, like, satisfaction, or just like, damn, should I guess that? Like, how are you supposed to guess that? But let's get back to the story. So Gail ends up finding everyone, and she ends up showing this Ghostface shrine thing. Again, you'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen the trailer or the movie. And this is where the final act's gonna occur later on. So after all this, they come up with a plan to track the killer's phone, and while they do this, they end up finding out that it's at Gail's place, where she finally gets her call for the first time from the killer, which I know is a pretty big moment in the franchise. This part was a pretty cool chase scene, but other than that, nothing really happened. Like, Gail gets stabbed, and Ghostface ends up running away, but like, Gail ends up living in the end, so that scene just kind of didn't really matter, to be honest. The next and final plan is to try to get the killer to go to the Shrine movie theater area so they can trap him in there and, you know, execute him. So while going to the movie theater, they end up taking the subway, and Tara, Chad, Danny, and Sam end up getting split from Mindy and Ethan. During this, there's a really interesting subway shot with a bunch of different Ghostface, since it's Halloween there, and I thought this was a really good scene. I wish it was drawn out a little bit more, but, you know, it was drawn out a good amount. I just wish there was more scenes in general, like with, you know, the huge population of New York City. That's what I think this movie could have used a little bit more of. But this scene was really well shot, and I just would have loved to see more like this. But what happens is that pretty much the lighting goes in and out, and this Ghostface keeps looking at her. He's getting closer, goes in and out of shot. You can't see where he is. But Mindy does end up getting stabbed twice, and then the killer kind of just leaves her there. I don't really know why the killer just left her. It was pretty obvious she was going to survive the stab wounds, since, you know, we've seen people stab a lot worse and they end up surviving. So that part felt a little bit weird, but whatever. I like Mindy, so I'm glad she survived. So Kirby ends up meeting with Tara and all of them, and then they end up heading into the movie theater shrine area. So Sam splits off from them and gets a call from Detective Bailey saying that Kirby isn't actually with the FBI and that she's been going off the rails recently. And then this obviously freaks her out. And I think this was a pretty cool little twist at the end, because a lot of people, including me, I didn't really have Kirby on the suspect list because obviously she's been through this before. But it also at the same time could kind of make sense. So it really has that moment in your head like, wait, did I actually get it right? Because at this moment, we still don't know how many killers there are. In my head, I was thinking there was 2. But throughout the movie, it could have been 1, it could have been 2. And at the end, it ends up being 3, which kind of makes sense. But yeah. Then we switch to Chad and Tara, and then they have a nice little moment, and they finally have their first kiss together. And after this, two Ghostface comes out of nowhere, and they end up stabbing Chad. I'm not even kidding, like at least 15 times, like just straight in the chest area. Now, like I said before, that this was the part that really enhanced, the scene for me, since, we know Chad and Tara have a thing for each other. So when Tara sees Chad get stabbed, it really makes it that much more impactful. And I gotta say, Jenna Ortega did an amazing job. That scene was like probably just perfect. It really just made you feel something when you see him getting stabbed in a reaction. And it was a point throughout the movie that Tara just wanted to live a normal life. And with Chad, obviously, she kind of felt like she could be normal. And just seeing him get stabbed in front of her that many times really it's a good part of the movie. So for that scene to happen, I kind of take back everything I said about the relationship before, about it being kind of forced, because that was just amazing. But I don't know how I feel about this, that Chad actually ends up surviving. Like, I don't think we've ever seen anybody in this franchise get stabbed that many times and end up surviving. Like, it was brutal. If you guys know what I'm talking about, he was getting gutted. Yeah, Chad ending up surviving was just so unrealistic, I feel like. But I mean, I really like Chad as a character, so I'm glad he didn't die. But it just didn't really make sense. So it was kind of shocking to me that the core 4 did end up surviving. But honestly, I like all the characters, so like I'm completely fine with that. But let's get into, in my opinion, the worst part of the movie. So the killer unmaskings. So I already told you that Quinn ended up being one of the killers, and her dad was also one as well, and he was the detective. We have 2 now. I told you there was 3, and the final one was Ethan. So it turns out that they're actually all a family. So Ethan's Quinn's sister, and the detective is their dad's. And this is where it kind of gets a little iffy for me. So it turns out that Richie, like I said before, from the last movie, who was the killer, was actually also part of that family. So he was their son and brother. And it seems like the whole reason they wanted to kill Tara and Sam doing all of this was because they wanted to get some type of like vengeance on Richie because he's dead, even though he killed a bunch of people. It doesn't really make that much sense to me, if I'm being honest. And it also turns out that all that evidence and the little shrine stuff was actually all Richie's as well. This really confused me and just made me feel a little iffy, because at no point that I think the killers from last Scream was at all involved with the new one. It just felt, I don't know, it makes sense, but the motive just isn't, it really doesn't justify it. And watching the film, I'm gonna be honest, I did think the detective was going to be one of the killers. Obviously, I never thought Quinn was gonna be, since, she was supposedly dead. And Ethan, to me, felt like too much of an obvious red herring, so I really kind of just like checked them off that he wasn't gonna be the killer. But it does make sense knowing that there was 3 killers in the end. But like I said, the motive just doesn't do it for me. That really just it really just plummets the whole like rating for me, to be honest. But what do you guys think about the unmasking of the killers? What did you guys think of it? Because I would like to read your comments below, see your thoughts. But in the final act, I really did like how Tara and Sam did end up taking care of the killers. So there's this whole thing with Sam and Tara, and Sam finally lets Tara go, and Tara goes down to Ethan and fucking stabs him in the goddamn mouth. And in this scene, it's super intense, and you can see like a kind of relief on her face that like she's so sick of these killers, and then finally her stabbing it kind of makes just her feel better, I guess. It's kind of creepy, but also like weird as well. I don't know how to explain it. And then Sam just casually pops Quinn right in the forehead, so she's dead. Bullet to the skull. And then the last kill onto the detective was really cool, in my opinion. So Sam ends up taking Billy's Ghostface costume and the voice changer, and she ends up calling the detective and playing the whole game and teasing him kind of with the whole, what's your favorite scary movie type thing. And she comes out and absolutely fucking hashes and stabs at his shit, pretty much like what she did to Richie in the last movie. And again, you can see in her face that she's going crazy. And then at the end, we get reunited with the core 4. Everybody's chilling, kind of, even though, Chad got stabbed like 15 times in the chest. But he'll be alright. Yeah, in the end, Mindy, Chad, Tara, Sam, Danny, and Kirby do end up all making it out alive, and we're on to Scream 7. Okay, that was a lot, but that pretty much covers everything. And I did actually really like this movie, and I really can't wait to rewatch it again. And as a rating, for now, I'll give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Mainly just because I didn't really like the unveiling and like the reason why they did it in the first place. And like I said, it was well before, I feel like they could have done a lot more with the setting being in New York City, but the scenes that were like, you know, the convenience store scene and the subway scene, those were really good. But it was a really good, solid movie in my opinion, and I'm very curious to see what they do for the next one, where they bring the story. So let me know down in the comments below if I missed any important or if I got anything wrong, and also what's your opinion on this movie. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.